The boy's lips were blue, his tiny fingers were limp against his father's jacket, and everyone around them was just watching. I don't remember dropping my suitcase, I just remember kneeling beside them on that cold airport floor and hearing my own voice cut through the panic. "I'm a doctor, move." My name is Mara Vale. I'm an ER physician, and that morning I was supposed to be flying to Seattle for a medical conference, not performing CPR near Gate 12 while strangers filmed on their phones. The father's hands were shaking so badly he could barely speak. He just stopped breathing. The child wasn't breathing. No pulse. Training takes over when emotion can't. Chest compressions, airway check, 1 breath, 2. "Come on," I whispered, not to the boy, but to fate. Then his body jerked, a cough, a cry, the kind of cry that splits open a room and stitches it back together. The crowd gasped. The father collapsed forward, sobbing into my shoulder. When the ambulance arrived, I climbed in with them without thinking. I thought that was the end of it. But a week later, when someone knocked on my apartment door at 9:47 p.m., I knew it wasn't. The hospital kept him overnight for observation. His name was Eli, 7 years old, severe allergic reaction that spiraled into respiratory arrest before anyone understood what was happening. Peanut residue in airport food court ice cream, a tragic, stupid accident. I stayed long after my shift ended. His father, Kareem, wouldn't stop thanking me. He kept repeating, "You gave him back to me," like I had pulled his son from somewhere darker than oxygen deprivation. But what unsettled me wasn't the gratitude, it was the way he watched me. Not admiration, calculation. Every time I stepped out to take a call, his eyes followed. When nurses asked for paperwork, he insisted I sign as the responding physician, even though technically I wasn't on duty. "I want to document it," he said softly. "Your name deserves to be remembered." At the time, it sounded sweet. By day 3, Eli was stable. I finally left. Life resumed. Shifts, coffee, silence. Until a week later, 9:47 p.m., 3 sharp knocks on my apartment door. Not hesitant, not finally, deliberate. When I opened it, Kareem was standing there, but he wasn't alone. There were 2 men standing slightly behind him. Not hospital staff, not grieving relatives. Suits, polished shoes, cold eyes. Kareem smiled, but it didn't reach his face. "Dr. Vale, may we come in?" My pulse didn't change. Our training teaches you how to look calm while your brain runs disaster simulations. "I don't entertain unannounced visitors," I replied. One of the men stepped forward and handed me a folder. My name was printed on the tab. Inside were hospital documents, my signature, timestamps, and a highlighted section circled in red. "Unauthorized medical intervention outside hospital jurisdiction," the man said evenly. "Technically, you performed advanced life-saving procedures without documented consent." I stared at Kareem. "You asked me to help your son." He sighed like I was being naive. "We're not saying you didn't save him. We're saying protocol matters." Protocol? His son would be in a morgue if we'd waited for paperwork. "What do you want?" I asked quietly. Kareem's smile finally formed. A settlement, public acknowledgement of liability, and a cooperative statement. The number on the last page made my stomach drop. They weren't grateful, they were hunting, and suddenly I understood the way he'd watched me in that hospital room. 3 days later, my face was everywhere. ER doctor accused of negligence. Unauthorized airport rescue under investigation. They used the very footage strangers had filmed while I was compressing that boy's chest, slowed it down, zoomed in, added commentary like it was a crime documentary. Kareem held a press conference outside a legal firm downtown. "I trusted her," he said into the microphones, his voice breaking on cue. "Now my son suffers complications." Complications? Eli had walked out of the hospital laughing, but the cameras didn't show that. They showed a grieving father. They showed a calm female doctor who overstepped. They showed edited clips implying hesitation, implying recklessness. And then came the board review. I walked into that conference room alone. 12 senior physicians, a projector, my name on the screen. One of them asked, "Did you consider liability before initiating CPR?" Before? Before I looked around that room and realized something brutal. This wasn't about medicine, it was about control, and they expected me to apologize. That was the moment I stopped defending myself and started observing them instead. The first night after the hearing, I didn't cry. I sat on my kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, replaying every second from Gate 12. The boy's blue lips, the father's shaking hands, the exact moment Kareem realized he could turn my heroism into leverage. Pain is loud first, then it sharpens. By morning, mine was precise. They wanted a settlement, a public apology, a narrative where I was reckless and they were victims. Fine. I requested every piece of hospital data connected to Eli's admission.
Not as a defendant, as a physician reviewing a case involving my signature, lab results, allergy panel, intake notes. And there it was, a discrepancy in timing. The official hospital intake listed Eli's respiratory arrest as occurring after security intervention at the airport, not before, which meant something critical. Someone had altered the sequence, because if the timeline shifted, liability shifted. I pulled the raw security footage from airport authorities using a colleague's contact in emergency response. Unedited, time-stamped, and the version the media was airing was missing exactly 43 seconds. 43 seconds where Kareem refused paramedics. 43 seconds where he argued about insurance documentation. I leaned back in my chair. They weren't just hunting me. They'd made a mistake. I didn't confront him immediately. Revenge isn't loud. It's layered. First, I filed a formal response to the medical board. Calm, clinical, precise. I included the raw airport footage with visible timestamps. No accusations, just facts. Then I sent a private notice to Kareem's legal team requesting clarification on the discrepancy between the hospital's intake report and the original emergency call logs. They didn't respond. That told me everything. So I did something bolder. I requested an independent forensic review of the hospital's digital records. A quiet move, but powerful. Metadata doesn't lie. Every edit leaves fingerprints. 2 days later, the report came back. The intake timeline had been modified 11 minutes after admission by an administrative login linked to Kareem. He wasn't just a father. He was on the hospital's board of donors, which meant influence, which meant access. The next hearing wasn't public, but I made sure it would become public. I walked into that room not as a defendant, but with a USB drive. And when the projector lit up with side-by-side footage and metadata logs, Kareem's lawyer stopped smiling, because this time, the full 43 seconds played. The room went silent before the footage even finished. You could hear Kareem breathing, short, shallow on screen. He was visible, arguing with paramedics. Wait, we need this documented correctly. Don't start anything until I call. Call who? The video cut to the original timestamp overlay, unaltered. Then the forensic report appeared beside it. Login credentials, edit history, exact minute the intake record changed. One of the board members leaned forward. Mr. Kareem, care to explain why your administrative access was used to modify a medical timeline? He didn't look at me. He stared at the table. His lawyer whispered something urgent. Too late. I stood, calm, measured. You accused me of violating protocol, I said, while delaying emergency intervention to secure legal positioning. A few heads turned sharply toward him. A father exploiting a dying child for leverage. That's not a good headline. Within 48 hours, the investigation shifted. The press conference invitations stopped coming for him. Instead, journalists began calling me. But I didn't celebrate, because 1 week later there was another knock on my door, and this time it wasn't Kareem. When I opened the door, Eli was standing there. No cameras, no suits, just a small boy holding a drawing folded in half. Behind him stood his mother, not Kareem. She looked exhausted, hollow in a way that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from knowing too much. "May we come in?" she asked quietly. Inside, Eli handed me the drawing. It was crude, crayons pressing too hard into paper, a stick figure with long dark hair kneeling beside a smaller one. Above it, uneven letters. "Thank you for breathing for me." My throat tightened before I could stop it. His mother spoke carefully. I didn't know what my husband was planning. When I found out about the altered records, I left. Board donors resign quietly, but scandals echo. Kareem stepped down 2 days after the hearing. The lawsuit was withdrawn. No apology, but the truth was public, and sometimes that's louder. Eli hugged me before leaving. "I want to be a doctor," he said. After they were gone, I stood by the door for a long time. I didn't save him for recognition. I saved him because he was blue, and I will always choose blue over protocol. Most people scroll past stories like this. The ones who subscribe are the ones trying to change something inside themselves. If this made you stop scrolling, subscribe to get more stories like this every day.